You ever hear a story so wild, so impossible, you almost think it's a movie? Well, this one is a movie, but it's also real life. This is the story of a kid who grew up on movie sets, tried drugs at 6, went to jail, got written off by Hollywood, and still became Iron Man. This is how Robert Downey Jr. went from rock bottom to the top of the world. A prodigy is born. Robert Downey Jr. was born on April 4th, 1965, in Manhattan, New York City. His childhood? It wasn't normal. His dad was an underground filmmaker. His mom was an actress. So, naturally, Robert grew up surrounded by art, cameras, and chaos. By the time he was a kid, he was already hanging around film sets. But his father made one mistake that would haunt both of them. He let Robert try marijuana when he was just 6 years old. What started as a harmless experiment quickly became a lifelong battle. Even as a child, Robert was fighting demons far beyond his years. But the thing is, he was also brilliant, charming, expressive, magnetic. You couldn't look away. By the 1980s, Robert was landing roles left and right. Funny, weird, emotional, he could do it all. He was clearly on the rise. Young Hollywood's shining star. In the late 80s and early 90s, Robert Downey Jr. became one of the most promising actors in Hollywood. He starred in Weird Science, Less Than Zero, and later, Chaplin. And he wasn't just good, he was great. Hollywood insiders talk about his range the way musicians rave about prodigies who can play by ear. Casting directors said he could read 3 pages of dialogue once and already be experimenting with cadence, posture, and micro-expressions no one had written into the script. Every set he walked onto felt charged, like something electric could spark at any moment. Less Than Zero hit a little too close to home. He played a wealthy kid addicted to drugs. Only that wasn't just a role. That was real life bleeding into film. Friends noticed he didn't have to reach far to summon the twitchy restlessness of a young addict. Between takes, he was charming and funny, but some nights he'd vanish, returning the next morning with bloodshot eyes and jokes to deflect any concern. Even then, his professionalism never crumbled on camera. The trouble brewed in the hours no one filmed. Then came Chaplin in 1992, and Robert, he transformed. The voice, the walk, the soul of Charlie Chaplin. He nailed it. He trained for months with dialect coaches, studied Chaplin's films frame by frame, and learned to play the violin left-handed just to hold the bow the way Chaplin once did. Crew members remember him rehearsing tap dance routines long after everyone else went home, determined to master every shuffle and kick. He got an Oscar nomination, and everyone said the same thing. He's arrived. Critics compared his performance to Brando's and On the Waterfront, a revelation that seemed to announce a new era in American acting. Studio executives called him the future, but off-screen, things were getting darker. The endless praise only masked the deepening spiral. The parties grew longer, the substances more dangerous, and the fear of failure, ironically, only intensified the cycle. While audiences applauded the genius, Robert was already fighting a private battle that fame would soon drag into the spotlight. The descent into darkness. By the mid-90s, Robert's addiction was out in the open. He was getting arrested, again and again, drugs, weapons, breaking into a neighbor's house and passing out in their bed. He wasn't just struggling, he was spiraling. He served time in jail, did rehab, attended court-ordered programs. But nothing stuck. At one point, in a brutally honest interview, he said, "It's like I have a loaded gun in my mouth, and I like the taste of metal." That's how deep the pain went. He got fired from jobs. Directors didn't want to touch him. Studios stopped calling. By the early 2000s, people had written him off. Robert Downey Jr. was a headline, not a hero. To most, he was finished. But something inside him was starting to wake up, a decision to fight back. Rock bottom. That's the turning point. For some, it's the end. For others, it's where the real story begins. In 2003, after years of crashing and burning, Robert decided to get clean. For real this time. It wasn't pretty. He relapsed. He doubted himself. But this time, he had a reason to fight. That reason? Susan Levin, a producer he met on the set of Gothica. She didn't fall for the charm or the excuses. She gave him a choice. If you want to be with me, you get clean and stay clean. Robert chose her. He chose love. He chose life. They got married in 2005. Susan became his anchor, the one person who believed in him when nobody else would. And with her by his side, Robert started to climb back, the road back. Even sober, Hollywood didn't exactly roll out the red carpet. Studios didn't trust him. Insurance companies wouldn't cover him. He was still considered a risk, a talented but troubled actor with too much baggage. So he took whatever he could get. Small roles in films like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and Zodiac, not blockbusters, but opportunities to prove himself. He showed up, worked hard, no drama, no miscalls, no excuses, just raw talent and quiet determination. Slowly, the industry started to believe again. Casting directors paid attention. And just when things were beginning to shift, Marvel called. Iron Man and a legacy reborn. It was 2008. Marvel needed someone to play Tony Stark in Iron Man, and they chose Robert Downey Jr. It was a massive risk. They were putting their whole cinematic universe on the back of a man the world had given up on. And guess what? He crushed it. Iron Man was a monster hit, critically and commercially. It didn't just launch the MCU, it relaunched Robert. Because Tony Stark wasn't just a character. He was Robert. Flawed, brilliant, haunted by the past, but fighting to make things right. Audiences saw the truth in his eyes. He was Iron Man. And for the next decade, he became the heart and soul of the Marvel Universe, leading a billion-dollar franchise with wit, heart, and unmistakable depth. More than just a hero. But it wasn't just about movies anymore. Robert Downey Jr. became one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood. But he also became a symbol of hope. He and Susan launched Team Downey, their own production company, focused on creating meaningful, character-driven stories. He didn't just rebuild his career. He used it as a platform. And through it all, he kept sharing his story. Not for attention, but to show others it's never too late. Not too late to turn things around. The man behind the mask. Today, Robert's life looks peaceful. He raises alpacas on his ranch. He practices martial arts. He reads philosophy. He's a dad, a husband, a survivor, and he doesn't try to hide his scars. He owns them because they're part of what made him who he is.